Overthinking. It's something that happens to a lot of us, if not most of us, during some point in our lives. So the question becomes, why do we do it, and how can we stop doing it? As a person who graduated with a degree in psychology, this was something that was really fascinating to me. So the first thing I did was I started looking at and talking to people who appear to never overthink. Do you see people like that in your life who just appear to always be present, always be in the moment, and never have other thoughts in the back of their minds? How is that possible when you have emails, when you have work, volunteering, relationships? So here's one very simple way to put it. Some people don't overthink because they're spending so much time doing that they don't have any time to think. They are constantly stimulated, and they're so much in the present that their mind can't wander anywhere else. Imagine when you're out with your best friend and you're talking and you're laughing. Imagine when you're watching a TV show or movie and it's so emotionally gripping or engaging. Are you overthinking in that moment? No, because you're so engaged in the current situation, your mind doesn't overthink. There's something happening in the present that is so stimulating that it requires all of your attention. When we overthink, it's a sign that whatever we're doing in the situation is failing to capture our attention. There are certain times I'm watching TV while eating lunch, while scrolling on my phone. And what that tells me is that nothing is able to capture my attention, and I keep reaching for things to keep me entertained. Sometimes you'll do something on social media where you hit up a recipe, chicken honey recipe or blueberry smoothie. And other times, you're going to open your apps with no clear goal. Like, I'm just going to see what's on Snapchat. You're not thinking of replying to anybody. You just want to see what's going on. And if nothing goes on, you start jumping from app to app. And whatever's more stimulating, that's the one you're going to stay on. Right? That's why Shorts and TikTok and Instagram Reels, I think, have been so successful, is because they recognize that. Even YouTube with their autoplay feature. Right? Like, you don't press on it. It just starts playing against your will, even if you don't want it to. So when we want to stop overthinking, we do something that's so stimulating, so then we stop. Let me make it a little bit dark. Do you folks know why people cut themselves? Like self-mutilate, when people take something, like, let's say they'll cut their wrist or they'll cut their thigh. Why do people do that? One of the leading theories is that an individual is overthinking to a crazy degree, or they have so many negative thoughts, they're in such a bad place that they take a knife or whatever it is, and when they cut themselves, it's actually very superficial. Like, the parts of their body that they'll cut, they know won't have serious effects on their health. And yet, they know that the pain is so stimulating that they can't think about anything else. So in a really weird, dark, and twisted sense, people who self-mutilate do it in a meditative aspect. Because if I feel terrible, but then the pain of my wrist or my thigh or wherever gets my brain to stop thinking about my sadness, and I just focus about the pain, like the physical pain. It allows me to focus on one thing. There's this joke that a comedian had, and he said, look, you can't be depressed and fall down the stairs. Right? Like, you can be depressed beforehand. My life sucks. I hate my parents. I don't want to be here. But as you're falling, you're going to think, ow, my shoulder, ow, my wrist, ow, my neck. Right? So it's not possible to think both. And in that humor, we can see it's absolutely true. So the question becomes, okay, let's be stimulated, right, Daniel? Oh, so the answer is, I just need to keep being stimulated. I need to scroll on my apps. I need to play a lot of video games. I need to do multiple things at once. It's like, be very careful, because being stimulated comes at a price. We only have so much dopamine to release. Why do you think dopamine detox is so popular right now? Because we end up building tolerance to it. And then we need more grander and grander things to help us release dopamine and make us feel good. So here's what you can do about it. The first thing you can do if you want to stop overthinking is I want you to identify what you're doing when you don't overthink. Like, think of a couple of scenarios, and you might say to yourself, well, I was out with my friend last night grabbing drinks. I was totally in the present. I never overthought once. I didn't think about that email or that assignment. Okay, out with my friend. What else? Well, when I went and played basketball with the guys, the moment I started to overthink, they got past me, they got a layup in. Oh, okay, so when I'm playing basketball, I'm really stimulated, I'm in the present, I can't overthink. All right, blah, blah, blah. So identify times where you're not overthinking. And then identify times where you are overthinking. The simplest thing to do is engage more in the things that you find yourself being fully in the present for. Do those things more often. The second level that you're going to do, and I'm going to put this in levels because everybody always jumps to level number 3, and that's why most people fail. But if you start at level 1, you're going to ease yourself into it. You have a higher chance of succeeding. So that was level 1. Do what helps you stay in the present more often. Level 2, practice doing one thing at a time. So often, I gave you that example about me scrolling on my phone, eating lunch, and watching TV. Practice just one thing. This is going to sound wild, right? But when you get up and go to the bathroom, leave your phone outside. When you take a shower, just take a shower. When you go to make food, if you're someone like me who listens to podcasts while they're making food and then watches YouTube when they're eating food, maybe do one or the other. Tell yourself, okay, when I'm making breakfast, I won't listen to anything. I'll just focus on making this breakfast, or vice versa. Listen to a podcast while you're making the breakfast, but then while you're eating, and I'm going to sound like a crazy man here, just think about the different tastes. Think about the foods, the texture. Think about your butt in the seat. Think about your back and your posture. Think about your breath. Think about all the wild functions that your tongue is doing in between your teeth to kind of pull food around without you biting it. And you're all doing it unconsciously without thinking about it. And when we begin to focus on one thing at a time, you're training your brain to be stimulated with one thing. And then later on, when you have to study for a test, or when you have to meet up with a friend, or when you have to work out, it'll help you be in the zone because you won't be as dopamine reliant. Okay? So level 2 is just practice doing one thing at a time. And now, I'm not saying you should do dopamine detox because that's how I think people end up failing, is they go too hard too fast. But just little things here and there. Next time you're meeting your friend at a cafe, you show up early, don't go on your phone. Just sit there and people watch. Look at the menu. Look outside. Right? Like, just sit there. And like, we're in a stage now where you're the weirdo because you're alone and you don't go on your phone. Right? It's normal to go on your phone when you're by yourself. And stage 3, this is the one that everybody wants to jump to, but it's extremely difficult, is meditating. Meditating is one of the hardest things you can do. Why? You are forcing yourself to be stimulated with the minimum possible physical awareness. Because at least if I'm making food, I'm still making food. If I'm working out, I'm feeling the burn, I'm thinking about my muscles. But if I'm meditating, I just have to think about my breathing, or I just have to think about my posture and my butt, how it feels sitting on the ground, or my knees or my shoulders. And the reason why it's so challenging is you have people who multitask and then they want to go from doing 3 things at once all of a sudden to focusing on their breathing. Good luck. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's quite difficult. That's why if people ask me about meditation, I leave that to the end. Because if you can't go to the bathroom without taking your phone, I think meditation is going to be really tough for you. But meditation is a perfect example of somebody who's mastered their mind. Somebody who can sit there and say, I want to go on my phone, but I'm going to exercise discipline for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and just sit here and just think about whatever's going on right here, not anywhere else. I might stare at a tree. I might stare up at the ceiling. Doesn't matter. But I'm not going to think about work. I'm not going to think about school or email or romantic relationships or things in the past or things in the future. I'm just going to think about right now. And if we can keep ourselves stimulated and we can keep ourselves busy, I promise you, your interest in multitasking will decrease. The rate of overthinking will also decrease. What's important to note is this is one of those things that's very hard in the beginning. And as you proceed to do it, it becomes easier and easier over time. A personal example is a couple months ago, I started staying off my phone in the morning for about 45 minutes to an hour. So I'd wake up, and I don't do this every morning, but most mornings I wake up, go to the bathroom, make breakfast, eat breakfast, maybe meditate, journal. And then I'd say, okay, now let's check emails and Messenger and Instagram intentionally, right? So I've practiced not being on my phone or not being stimulated for a certain amount of time. So now it's deliberate. And if I can do that, I'm exercising the part of my brain that's involved in prioritizing. And as you grow up, that part of your brain is going to be extremely crucial when you're studying, when you're going to work, when you're engaging in meaningful tasks that need 100% of your attention. So, folks, are there any tips that I missed? Are there any things that I wished I talked about that I didn't? Let me know. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear it. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care, and bye-bye.